I'm going to start recording the session. I apologize, I haven't been able to get the links to the recordings from yesterday to you. I'm still having email issues, so that will be coming. Has anybody sent you any documentation on product setup or customer and supplier setup?
I haven't received any documentation on how to do any of that. All I was exposed to was when people were here originally talking about the system.
Okay. That's part of what
We've already done a customer and supplier training.
But he's asking if we got any documentation for setup, like product setup, item setup.
Oh, no, not for product, no.
Okay. I'll get that to you once my email is working. Okay, let's get started. So, in X3, of course, there's multiple ways to access product site, and product category setup. I just happen to be on the same data administrator page. And I'm sorry, we'll switch to, I guess, Rhonda to be presenter. Sorry, I usually present from my screen, so I'm going to be a little bit backwards here for a while. All right, I think that's okay. So
Can you see our?
I can, yes.
Okay.
So there's a good way to, so the data administrator page, landing page here, you can get to managing products, which you have on screen, which is just fine, but also through the product design landing page, you can access the similar features. We can just stay here for now. So the product setup is very similar to the customer and supplier setup, and to which you start with a category. And from there, products inherit details from the categories. And then we'll introduce a new concept called the product site creation. So if you want to get started here, let's go ahead and select the Manage Product Categories. Up a little. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so again, these are very much like the supplier categories, customer categories, sets of defaults that the products will inherit when you create them from scratch. So when we start with this, the first tab here, description, the characteristic block. So hold on one second, I'm trying to get my screen situated so I can follow. All right. So we first start, you got a short description and followed by a product sequence under characteristics. So again, you can have X3 auto-assign a product sequence to a specific product category, like we've got in here, and I believe I created all these based on your products and bills of materials. So you've got customer consign no lot, customer consign lot, bag, products, bagging, packaging, semi-finished bulk, lot with QC, semi-finished whip, lot with QC. So the various
Are you talking about under the short descriptions? You're talking about the product sequence.
I'm talking about product. I jumped to product categories. See your left list? These are all the categories that are existing that I created for you based on the characteristics I saw in your products. These can be, you can add to the list, remove from the list, but all your products are in the system as were provided to me. Those are already imported, and we'll see that in a second. So I kind of chose these categories to stick them into, and you can see that in our subsequent steps.
So where did that information come from? You said you created that based on what information you got?
Yes, I received a product list from, I think, Tyler, your IT person.
Okay, so you created these based on what items he sent you?
Yes, based on that list and the information that was within the list. Like, we kind of group these product categories by characteristics of, lot management or QC control or what types of products they are. And there was some information in your list that indicated, how to set this up, if you will, as an initial starting point.
So if I wanted to change that, do I just click on this over here? Or do I need to highlight this and then click one of these items?
Yeah, I mean, the left list is the list of the various categories that exist now. If you want to change any one of those, then yes, you would select it. It becomes active in the center screen.
Okay.
Then you modify it. This is how all functions work in X3, even everything we covered yesterday.
This is really my first, any hands-on setup training, anything. So this is Kelly. So
I'm sorry.
Rhonda and I think some other people have had some training. So I'm sorry, I'm going to be a little slower.
Okay. You're signed in as Rhonda. I'm sorry. I misunderstood who I was talking.
That's okay. We're all hanging out together.
Okay.
And I don't have any user login information, so we just will work from Rhonda's computer.
Okay. Well, we can get that set up. If you know who doesn't have accounts that needs to have access, then email me and I'll get that taken care of.
On Friday. We have that training scheduled for Friday. Tyler and I are setting the users up.
Okay. I'm probably doing your training then. Okay. All right. So this is the first time you've seen X3, is that right?
Well, not necessarily first time I've seen it. I was on the call yesterday morning as well, listening to the order sequence, but really didn't do much with it. And so, and then otherwise it's just been when people have been here showing us demos.
Okay, I gotcha. All right, so you've got the left list there on the left-hand side. That is the list of all the product categories. So if this were the sales order screen, the left list would show the list of all the sales orders in the system. And you can use that left list to filter what you're looking for. In the case of product categories, we don't have very many. This list will remain fairly similar to what it is and not grow. So that's what we're dealing with. And when you select an item from the left list, then it populates the center of the screen to where you work on the actual transaction itself.
We do use something similar now in FMS that are called item classes. I don't know if it would be beneficial to have shared that list with you for this purpose. Because it sounds like this is the same thing as our item classes.
Yeah. Let me open up the item master that I was sent to see if that class is in there. Item class. Yeah, that was the basis of creating these. So in your item classes, that were provided with the product. You have ingredient, and I think we have an ingredient category here, and then we have finished
There
product.
would be like packaging lot tracked, packaging not lot tracked. That is either customer owned or Kansas City owned for each one of those as well. And then we have like our finished products. We've been putting those in their own class versus WIP products are in their own class versus ingredients.
Yeah, let me see what I have here.
I mean, it would not be difficult to run a list of those and send them to you. That would.
No, I have it here.
Yes.
I have bags,
You too.
customer ingredient, formula ingredient, KC customer custom pack, KC fin product, KC whip 4, KC custom pack no, KC packaging, KC package no.
Right, and the no means no lot tracking.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think so I used that information to set up these categories. So X3 is going to operate a little bit differently, so I may have tweaked some things to, it's got to be mapped. It's not always going to be a one-for-one. So I did the best job that I could in interpreting these to get them into the system here. And now that they are in the system, they can be moved. You can create more categories. You can change the categories of products. And hopefully from the training today, you'll be able to see what you can and can't do, be able to study it a little bit, and then you can make a decision if you want to change categories or what you want to do, add categories, remove categories.
Sure. Yeah. I guess once we kind of understand that, you show us what all it does, but that's what we were thinking, is that it would be very similar in that, when you set an item up, you pick a category, and that category then takes, whether it's lot tracking or what your general ledger codes are and things like that, and maybe rolls it to that item possibly. But yeah, that's fine. We'll watch and see how it works.
Right. So the categories in that left list, I set up according to what I saw in that product data based on the current ones you have. Okay? That was kind of my best guess as to.
Sure. Yep, that's fine.
They weren't all one for one, and that's where you'll have to kind of interpret what I did and refine it to your liking. So, okay, so we start. This is a category again. The category is just a set of defaults that will be passed down to the product when you create it. Most often you are creating products not by starting with a new product and selecting a category, but by copying from one product to another that is similar in your system. That's the easiest way to do it, and what most people wind up doing down the road once they get experience with it. So this is typically only used really much in the initial setup, except for two things. There are active rules within product categories that are controlled at the category level. Everything else is basically a set of defaults that gets passed to a product, but there are some active components in here that, if changed, will influence the behavior of the product. So I'll identify those as we come across them. So when we start with the product category, let's select packaging, for example. All right, so you have a description up top, packaging. Storage site is left blank. What this is here is you can have product categories that are identical in name, but different in characteristics for each separate site that you have. For example, you have multiple companies and multiple sites, okay? by leaving the storage site blank, this product category will be the same for all sites and all companies. If you wanted to make a package category different from one site to another, but still maintain that category name package, you can create a product category for each individual site, and it'll retain that name package and be identified uniquely with the storage site. Typically, customers don't do that, but I just want to explain to you that that's an option. Right now, all these categories will be used generically for all your sites and all your companies. So, and we can go through an example of that here. Let me just show you how that works a little bit. So, where you are right now in the packaging, go to where it says storage site in the top, and use the lookup glass there to choose something, anything. Fairview Mills is a good one. Okay, Kansas City Treats, perfect. Hit create on the right list. Since you're newer to this, I'll explain that the right side of the screen, select continue. The right side of the screen are kind of like your controls, like create new, save, delete, cancel, etc., etc. So now what we did is we created a product category package specific to the storage site KC Treat. Now go ahead and I want to see that in the left list. So go ahead and refresh the screen for me. And how you do that is with that little spinner on the right-hand side there. Yes, thank you. Okay, so now you see what's highlighted in the green on the left list. You see you have package with KC Treat, and then you have packaging one space above it with no site. So what this does is you can if you create a product for KC Treats in the package category, it'll have characteristics different than the one that's above that doesn't have a site selected. So everything else, we use that other blank one. KC Treats, we use this particular one. So they can have different characteristics. Typically, customers don't use specific categories per site. So let's go ahead and delete that one for now. So go to the right-hand list and select delete for me. Okay. Okay again. And now do a screen refresh again. So I just wanted to show you in that example how that works. But again, most customers don't use that for this application.
Is there a reason why customers don't use it?
Yes, because it's really not necessary to have. Most customers don't find it necessary to keep track of that kind of detail at the product category level when you can actually just change the product record if you have something that's different from one site to another. If it were something used over and over again repeatedly and there was a need for it, then yes, they would use it. But I've yet to date in 5 years had a customer actually use it. So go ahead and select packaging again from the left list for me. All right, so to continue on, we have the characteristics block here. We have a short description that's used in reporting purposes if there's real estate limited on reports sometimes. The field below that, the product sequence, that's where you can assign an auto numbering system when you create products in this category. And there, the list comes up with some pre-assigned ones, or we can customize one. You guys have your own part number?
So back to the short description. So the short description says purchase, but our category is packaging. Why is the short description purchase?
Probably because I copied it from another one and I did not change it. That would
But
be
it can be changed. It
that
can
would be
be
a
changed
mistake.
anything just by typing in it.
Yeah, just go
If
backspace
I just
through it.
wanted to change it to packaging like PKG or something to shorten it up,
That's
you're
correct.
saying it's not gonna print on reports, or how long is it gonna print on reports? How many characters normally?
Well, it'll print whatever's in there. It's just like a separate field to give a. If you do an escape F6 for me on your keyboard, I can tell you how long the field length is. It's 20 characters, and the main description above is 30.
Okay.
Again, it's not used a lot for anything. It could be left blank. But go ahead and tab through that field. Press the tab key for me on the keyboard, and now that indicates that this has been updated, so you can save it on the right list again.
Okay, so you said this product sequence number can either be auto-assigned or we would create a number, but do we do that on individual products, or you're saying you would, I guess I don't quite understand how that works.
Okay.
Because normally our item numbers in the past, we have generated, we made our own numbers.
That's correct.
So,
and this is blank. That means you can still create your own numbers. If you wanted the system to auto-assign numbers, then we would put in a product sequence in this field.
okay.
Currently, they're blank because we know you're using your own numbering scheme.
Okay.
And then the next field over, creation method, click on the options there for me. You have direct and with validation. What this means is when you create a product, if you select direct, it'll automatically be active. With validation, it'll be created inactive, and then somebody will have to make it active.
Okay. I don't think we want to have to do that, as far as I know. So direct would make sense.
Okay, so you can also, the next block there under managers, you have access code, buyer, and planner. What these are is you can assign access codes to user accounts, and that will allow them to basically use this product category when creating new records. So if for some reason you had something top secret in a special product category for these top secret products, and you only wanted one person to be able to create products in this category, then you would assign an access code to that user and put it in to this product category. The next two fields, buyer and planner, you can assign a buyer and you can assign a planner to this product category, and that will trickle down to the actual product itself. And this has applications to purchasing and MRP. For example, if you have a certain buyer assigned to what will trickle down to a product from here, then only that buyer will be able to purchase the product, nobody else. Same thing.
Yeah, we probably won't use that then.
Yeah, again, these are fields that I've rarely seen customers use. Same thing with planner. You assign planners to products, then only those planners will be able to, plan the orders.
Sure.
So the next two blocks below, category types. If this product were a tool or a maintenance item or service or a phantom or generic, those boxes would be checked. This is not. To the right of that, there's a flow type, and this basically controls whether these products can be purchased, delivered, sold, manufactured, or subcontracted. It's kind of like a check and balance to where if you have like a product category that only, let's say, is set up for subcontracting, then it would prevent you from like issuing a purchase order for it. It would only allow you to subcontract it. So it's just a way to kind of restrict the operations of the products to kind of control their use.
What is what does it mean when it says sold versus deliverable? So deliverable means you're gonna buy it delivered?
Now, deliverable means that you can send it somewhere. Like you can, let's say you have a loan order or consignment inventory to where you sell it. That's a bad example because of the sold thing. Like a subcontract order, you've got to be able to deliver it, or even an inter-site transfer. You can create a delivery from one site to another. It just allows a stock movement. That's all.
So in other words, I mean, we have customers that could buy any one of the items that we have at any one of our locations. So that would mean that we will need to check that box so this item's available to sell out the door. Is that what that means? Like it could be sold as a stock item?
Correct.
So we would want to have that box checked if we want to be able to sell it. It won't let me change
well,
it.
not for inter-site purposes. You wouldn't want it.
Oh, this is just for inner company stuff.
Well, it can be. Okay, so this is packaging. You got to determine what you want this category to be, and again, these just flow down to the product, and then you can modify them at the product level.
But we do sometimes sell bags and packaging to our customers if they need it. So
okay, then we would want to make this of a sold flow type as well.
So how do I do that? It wouldn't let me check mark it. How do I check mark it? Do I need to do something different?
We may have to click on one of the other categories. Let's try and find one that has sold in it. So once we have certain categories defined or flow types defined, then we would then you kind of get locked in with some other characteristics. We may have to create a new category and then move the products into that category that you want. So
I'm really confused. I'm not sure I'm following. So you're saying we can't? Why can't we change that then?
It's like a locked-in field.
So once you save it, you can't go back and change it. Is that what I'm? Like once this packaging category is set up, and those were the flow types that were checked, then those are going to stay that way. And if we want it to be different than that, then we would need to go set up a different product category.
Yes.
Okay. Because, like I said, just about any ingredient or packaging item, anything physically that's on hand can be sold at any time to anybody.
Okay. And I can also change this in the background too.
Well, then you can't do anything. I don't know. I didn't understand.
Let's go ahead and just let's go through and let's create a brand new category, and so we can kind of walk through the whole process.
Okay, so
and
new.
We can delete it. New. Yep. Name a category.
Should I have copied something?
No, let's just start from scratch.
Okay.
Just enter a category name. It could be test, whatever you like.
Oh, there's only 5 digits?
That's correct.
Okay. That's not very many. Test packaging. So
These are special category types. I wouldn't think you'd need
right.
any of
So I don't
those.
see any of those, but I want to like make sure I check mark that one, but I don't know. How come? Okay, wait a minute. That was weird. I checked sold and then it checked deliverable. How
Correct.
come?
Because if it's sold, it has to be deliverable.
Okay. All right. So save this.
It's probably going to require some other things. Go ahead and hit the create. And it's going to ask you for a couple other things that we haven't entered yet. So anything that's required, if you try and save it,
Weird. So I guess a lot of our packaging materials are set up as eaches.
It's a piece.
okay?
Ah, that's piece. Aha, there it is. Okay, this is different. All right. So what is this?
That's just a stock label format. You don't need to select anything there.
Good. All right. I have no idea. Do we have to fill that in? It just has to have the ones with the asterisk filled in. I could maybe save it now. No.
Well, go ahead and hit create. It may require you, because you have it as the categories being sold, to fill in some of the other fields, and it did for you. Go back into the unit of measure tab. Okay, well, it's going to require that. Valuation method, you guys use FIFO, I believe. Right, so you see how it filled in the purchase sales and other units based on the stock unit. And you could change those to other units if you wanted to.
Okay.
So next, we're in the, what tab were we on there? The accounts and costing. Yeah, that's where we selected the valuation method. Here you also have to put in an accounting code. Type in STD for me there, or some of the others.
Wow, that's quite an accounting code.
It's just an acronym for standard.
Yeah.
Actually, they might have taken that one out of there. So your packaging going to be finished goods?
But in most circumstances, it's probably not going to be finished goods, right? It's like when you purchase it, it's more like an ingredient or a raw material that goes into your final packaging.
Yeah, this is just something that you guys have to determine, how you want the product categorized. Tax level, if this is going to be, I don't think you guys are taxing, so you can select a tax level of NTX or NT. Yeah, NTX. You can have multiple tax levels, of which we don't have any, so we'll leave the others blank. The cost group there, the field you were just on, that's informational, like when you're looking at like cost roll-ups and things. If this product is part of a bill of materials that's rolled up into cost, it'll group similar cost groups together. So if this were, I would select packaging here. And you're not using any standard costing, so the rest of those fields there are not applicable. Okay, now let's see if we can save it or create. Okay, so go back to the main description tab. So within here also you have statistical groups at the bottom. So these are some codes that somebody has already created in the system. I'm not sure what these are, but level 1, 2, 3, and 4. Statistical groups are used for reporting purposes or just organizing your products. It's one more level deeper than just the category itself.
Okay, so then there's some levels set up then too that, like, if I pick one of these, then what's it gonna do if I pick level 1?
I'm not sure. I didn't enter these. I'm not sure who created them.
Okay.
We can check. Go ahead and in that field you're in, there's a little action card there. Yeah, right there in the middle. The jump to. Go ahead and jump to that for me. All right, so this is the list that somebody put in the system. I want to find out who created this list. So go over to the very right list on the screen and open up the utilities there. And it won't let me check the properties. Okay, I was going to try and find out who created these. It might have been your accounting folks, I'm not sure, but go ahead and close that.
It wasn't us.
Okay.
How do I close it? Do I just hit this cancel on the right-hand side?
That's fine, and then close page above it. I'd have to ask Laura or Tom who created those groups, but they would have come from somewhere. And again, these serve no functional purposes.
Well, I do know on our item setups now, we do have different levels that we use for showing like the percent markup for each item. So whether an ingredient markup is normally going to be 3%, 4%, 5%, that sort of thing, within our item setup now, but I don't know what those levels mean, and I don't know who would have set them up or where they would have gotten that information, because nobody specifically asked me anything about those, within our current item setup. So
okay, I will I'll find out. I'll get that answer. Okay, so the next tab we have under management. And I believe if we go back to the description, you can see that you can still check or uncheck some of those. Go back to the description tab. You can still check or uncheck those flow types. And I believe because we don't have any products assigned to this yet, that we still have that ability. But I believe once you assign products to a category, then it locks it in. That's why you're not able to change those other categories.
If you remove the products that it's assigned to, will it then release that field?
I believe so. If you'd have to move all the products into a different product category, and there is a tool to do that in mass. Like if you wanted to change all the products from one category to another, and then modify that category and then move them back, you can do that. Okay, let's go to the management tab next. And this is where you define if the stock is managed or not. The options are not managed, to where you can buy and receive the product, but you don't keep track of stock. There's no stock valuation. Everything would be expensed. There's no keeping track of anything. So a lot of your office expenditures are like this, like when you buy copier paper or paper towels or something like that, they would be non-managed products. Everything you use.
So if the item you set up, you check mark that it was a service item, then that probably is it even an option? Because if it's a service item, it's not going to be something you keep track of anyway.
That's correct.
Okay.
So most of your manufacturing products will be managed, and then there's even options for potency management, which is more a chemical type option, to where it allows you to, like, let's say you bring in a liquid solution that's like 97% pure. You can use potency management to say, okay, I've got 100 gallons of this, but it's 97% sure, so my effective quantity is going to be 97 gallons, not 100 gallons. So that's what that option is. Rarely used. The next block under stock parameters, the first checkbox there is negative stock. This is always very controversial between operations and accounting folks. The accountants never want you to allow negative stock, and the operation folks always want to allow negative stock. What this does is this can restrict you from sending product out that you may have if the system doesn't think you have it. But then it also...
So it won't let you, even if you have, it won't let you get past that, even if you have the product and you just don't have it in stock in the computer at that point in time.
Right. So let's say you had, the system says let's say you're putting a work order together to manufacture one of your dog treats. And the system says you don't have enough raw materials to make it, but you really know that you do, or something showed up that day, and the person that knows how to enter it into X3 is not there, and there's nobody else there that knows how to enter it into X3. If you don't allow negative stock, X3 won't allow you to process that product, create the sales orders, the documents, etc., etc. So that's a restriction that is meant to help your accounting in a great way, because when you allow negative stock, it creates all these other complications. It can allow you to do things that you shouldn't be able to do.
We agree with that for sure. We definitely don't like to have negative inventory items, but on the flip side, on the operation side, they have to be able to ship product out the door, whether the computer says it's there or not. It's not an option.
Correct.
So you're saying that we would have to have this check marked to allow them to use it even if it's not there, or allow them to ship it out even though it's not there.
Correct.
Okay.
Now that's not the only way. There are other workarounds. Like if you've got to use a product that's not in the system, you could do a miscellaneous receipt, and all of a sudden, boom, it's there, and use it. So it's not an absolute go, no-go. There are other ways to, you should never have negative stock, theoretically, okay? So
if we did miscellaneous receipts, though, isn't that going to cause other problems for accounting?
Possibly. It depends on the situation. It's a yes and no answer. If you actually have something and it's not in the system, doing a miscellaneous receipt to get it in the system has the same effect as doing a stock count. If you have something and the system doesn't think you do, it's probably due to some kind of stock counting, or something just walking in the door that didn't that never got put in the system or something, those are all accounted for in either your cycle counting or via miscellaneous receipts. The accounting effect in the end is the same. They typically hit the same accounts. So,
Okay, well, that's what I was going to ask. So miscellaneous receipt doesn't create a receipt to a vendor. It's just like doing a positive inventory adjustment to your inventory.
correct.
Okay.
So they're all, you know, if you want to leave negative stock off, there are ways around it to keep your place flowing when needed. So it's something that you guys got to determine with your accountants, because it has heavy account effects on accounting, because it could allow somebody to potentially run stuff through the system that doesn't exist by accident, and that could cause all kinds of other problems. Are there any other questions on that?
I don't think so. I think internally we'll just have to talk about that a little bit more and the pros and cons of how we would want that set up.
Okay. Yeah, it's completely customer decision that's got to be right for your business. We always recommend do not allow negative stock. But again, and you can change this on a product by product basis. All right. The next field over, management mode. Click on that for me so we can look at the options there. Available stock and by order. This has to do with MRP processing. When products are selected to be on a by order basis, MRP processes them individually according to their parent order. For example, if I have 2 orders for dog treat A, 2 separate sales orders, and they're the same dog treat, and one order is due, let's say they're both due on the same day to be delivered, but 2 separate orders for whatever reason, different customers could be. So I got 2 sales orders for the same product, same day. If I select by order, all the MRP and purchasing suggestions for the components, etc., work orders will all be individual chains, okay? They will not be grouped. So whereas it would make sense to manufacture them all at the same time and purchase all the components at the same time, MRP will make purchase suggestions that keeps them separately. Now, this is mainly used in a made-to-order situation, to where you are always ordering materials for direct sales orders. When you're more in a made-to-stock position, to where you're stocking product, then you would select available stock. Now, you can also mix and match these at different levels. So for example, where we started, we had 2 sales orders for the same product to different customers. That parent product, we may want to have separate work orders for. Let's say they have different packaging, but the same bone in them. So we're going to create separate work orders at the top level. And then once we get into common components like your bone meal or flavoring or whatever you put in there, those products at the lower levels you can keep at available stock. So what that'll do is it'll keep your suggestions, your purchase suggestions and work order suggestions independent at the top level, and at the bottom level it will combine the products. So you would have like 1 purchase order for flavoring instead of 2 separate purchase orders. But if you kept everything on that bill of material and formula on a by order basis, then it would keep everything separately. Does that make sense?
somewhat. I think other people understand better than I do in that we would probably want to use the stock. We don't want to look at it on an individual order by order basis. I don't, you know, we don't think anyway. So
Well,
now I don't know how procurement feels about, like, you know, they purchase a lot of ingredients for specific sales contracts. So those purchase contracts, you know, those ingredients are purchased already. So now if a new order comes in for that's going to use some of the same ingredients, then how does that get captured?
well, it depends on your stock. And so if you've got, you know, if you don't have enough to supply all your demand, it'll recommend you suggest to order a product, no matter what the management mode is. So if you've got stock on hand, that's independent of management mode here. And then there's allocation rules as well. Typically, if you're making product to order, you would use a by order management mode. So your more top level components would be by order, and then your more anything you keep in inventory and stock would be on a available stock management mode.
Okay, I think we're good with the available stock.
Okay. So you're going to want to look through these categories to change that, because a lot of these I think I have you set up as by order. Okay, moving on to cycle counting.
Sorry, what?
The next field that we'll cover will be cycle count mode. Just down and to the left, click on those options for me. So you can choose annual count to where things are counted annually, or cycle counting to where there's a whole systematic method that can be set up depending on ABC class. Next we have stock withdrawal mode. There's immediate or back flush. What this does is when you're tracking work orders, as you're tracking the use of components, it will withdraw them from stock immediately, or it will wait until the entire order is complete and then back flush out the components.
Okay, and when you say immediately, is that like you create the work order and it immediately uses them?
No, it will use them in the tracking process. So when you're tracking the order, let's say you're mixing batches. It's part of a large production run. Every time I mix a batch, I'm going to use 10 pounds of this, 10 pounds of that. I can track that use. Then the immediate withdrawal mode, it'll directly come out of inventory. Or in the backflush method, if you just want to wait until you're done at the end to see how much you've used, then you would use backflush, and then it'll wait until you sum everything up, and then you look at it, make sure it's right, and then you complete the manufacturing tracking, and then it will backflush out the components.
Okay, so isn't Kansas City going to be manually entering usage of those ingredients into Sage X3?
That's the plan, yes.
So immediate really isn't going to happen, because that would really be when they're hand entering everything anyways.
Yes. I mean, if they're entering things back, you know, as they batch by batch, and they're in like a 3-day continuous run.
Okay.
They're going to keep. They can keep track of it as they go. That doesn't change on what method of stock withdrawal it is. It's more of a preference as to how you want to see your stock coming out of the system. You either wait till the end of your run, and then if you have in a backflush mode, it'll wait to turn the components into the finished product right at that time. Or your immediate withdrawal, you take stock out of the system as you use it immediately, as you track it, but you don't have a finished product on the other end yet.
Okay, well, I think maybe we'll want to see both sides of it at the same time happening. So seeing it coming out of ingredients and into finished product, because what happens if that doesn't happen at the same time? Where does that go? Where's the other side if it came out of inventory and did not go into finished product yet?
It's just held in suspension in WIP.
Okay, I guess we're not quite sure.
It really doesn't have any accounting effects or anything like that. It's just a matter of, what do you want to see in the system? Do you want to see all your inventory of flour? Do you want to see the quantities go down as it's actually used in process, or do you just want to wait to the end of the run and back flush your actuals that you actually used?
Okay,
so
I feel like that might be something we need to talk to Kansas City about. I don't know, is anybody from Kansas City on today? No. So
yeah, I'm on.
Okay, Kevin, what are your thoughts on
that? It seems like we are kind of used to just doing actually doing it all at the end is what we've been accustomed to. I'll have to think about it. There will be some challenges to do it as we go, but let me just think about those details and work through those. So I'll have to kind of table that decision for right now.
Right, because you usually count at the end and you try to capture everything that was used and wanting to capture that accurately, and maybe that, yeah. So at this point in time, we maybe aim towards maybe the back flush, and then I guess, I guess you guys can maybe explore that immediate some more.
Yeah, that's a common.
As you get started.
It's very common to use back flush. The back flushing allows you to correct any errors you may have seen in the process before you finalize the work order. So if you're tracking all these things and you see something wrong before you're done, you have the opportunity to adjust it before it actually takes the stock out of the system. Okay.
So it's not anything final at that point in time, is what you're saying.
Correct. You're just tracking a work order without you're not affecting stock on either side yet.
Okay.
Okay, the next field is traceability. You can, this just allows X3 to enable detailed tracking of the product by lot number through the system. Go back and look it up in time. For your stuff, you would want detailed traceability on any finished or raw material products, I guess.
Some items we do need to track, and others we don't. It just depends on the item and what it's used for.
Right. Okay, so the next block is lot management. You either have not managed, optional lot, mandatory lot, or lot and sublot. Most of your stuff is going to be mandatory lot. And it'll assign a lot number there, or if you clear that field, you'll enter your own manual lot number.
Kevin, I guess we would just leave this blank since you use manufacturer lot numbers. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree.
Okay. Now, in the optional lot, that just gives you the option to enter a lot or bypass entering a lot on a product. The next block over serial number management, I don't believe you're using serial numbers at all. Quality control, this determines what methods you're going to use. There's either no control. Non-changeable control means that everything goes through QC. You have changeable control to where you can decide when you receive the item in or not whether you want to put it in quality control. Or there's periodic control, which is like an AQL type of level.
Kevin, now so you guys are not using shop floor anymore.
Right.
We're just going to be using whatever we receive in. So whatever, when we switch to X3. So I guess the question is, should every item, do you think, be non-changeable control, that has to be in QC management, or is that going to depend on the item and the type of item that it is?
Probably better talk to people here, but I think it's going to kind of depend, really.
Okay.
Like if it's an in-process item that you don't actually inspect, like trying to think of an example. Like if you had a sub-formula of something that is pre-mixed before it goes into something else, but you don't actually inspect it at that time, then you would not have control on it. If it's something that you're going to come out and always inspect and keep a record of, then you would want mandatory control.
If you say mandatory control, you mean non-changeable control?
Correct.
Okay.
All right, let's see what the next field is under there if you're ready to move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Technical sheet, this is where you define the technical sheet is defined as a series of pass-fail questions that you set up for an individual product. I just have one in the system. It's just a simple yes, no, pass, fail. So you can actually go through a questionnaire inside of X3 if you want, or use your existing QC procedures and in X3 just pass or fail it.
Okay, so that's probably more of the QC department in those conversations and how that all needs to be set up, because I have no idea.
Correct.
So how do companies normally do this? Do they have multiple people who set up these items and finish, answering all these questions, or do they normally just have one person who answers all these questions?
No, typically it's groups of people. You're not necessarily making decisions today. We're just trying to show you what is involved in the setup of the product and product categories, and then whoever is in charge of kind of customer will usually have somebody who's like their champion in certain areas to like lead the charge, and then they would kind of coordinate between the right people as to what we're going to do here when you do the setup. So I don't know who that is at your facility, but I don't even know who's going to be in charge of creating the products.
Sure. Well, right now this is Kelly. Right now I set them all up. So
okay.
That's why I was asking how other companies normally do answer these questions. But like Rhonda was just pointing out, these are just the categories, not the actual products themselves. So
correct. You got to decide as a company, like a smaller company, maybe only one person making all these decisions. A large company, sometimes we have a committee that's formed of 5 to 8 people that go through all these details. So it really depends on the size of your organization.
Sure.
So the basic question here is, do you want to do the detailed quality control inspections inside of X3 or not? So we know you need to do QC inside of X3 to make sure things get controlled. So the decision needs to be made is, do you want to use your existing systems for whatever you go through and inspect, and then just have a pass-fail inside of X3? Or do you want the full gamut to be inside of X3?
Kevin, are you gonna look into that a little bit? 'Cause that's more of your team's
Yeah.
area, I think.
Yeah. I'll talk to the quality folks here. I kind of envision probably the full deal since it's going to be our one point, for the QC thing. So I'll have
Kevin,
I
I think that's right, Kevin. I believe that I'll circle around to Mike Bulk, but I believe that's what he's planning on, is it all being set up for Kansas City Treats through this. So
yeah, that's my understanding as well.
Within that, then, Dennis, so you set this technical sheet up for pass or fail. So then the characteristics that are going to make it either pass or fail, is that a category type item or is that a product type item?
No, it's all product item. The technical sheet that you see, the pass fail, I just named it that. So what a technical sheet is you in quality control training is a whole separate learning session, but you put together basically, let's consider it an Excel spreadsheet, if you will, with questions. So you start by defining the question basis, like the questions can be anything, like what is the viscosity, what is the flammability, what is the whatever characteristics you're looking to measure in terms of quality. And you define those questions, and you wind up with a huge bank of questions, could be 1,000 questions. And then the technical sheets are a selection of those questions put together. So, and that can be, on a product by product basis, or that you can use one technical sheet on multiple products. It's just, and that's kind of how the QC technical sheets are put together. You start with product questions, a question base, and a base of answers to those questions, which are either acceptable, in range, out of range. And then you combine all those questions that you want to use for a product onto a sheet.
Okay, that makes sense. So then if I leave this blank, then whenever I set up the product, at that point in time, then could you pick which technical sheet you wanted to use?
Correct.
By each product, not instead of using it in the category, you would just assign it on each product.
Right. You don't have to assign it here, nor would I recommend it.
Okay.
And once we get into the product, you'll see that you kind of go through, set these categories up, and then you kind of never come back to them again, because you'll just wind up copying similar products and similar categories from one to another. Okay. Next field is you can put an access code on the QC management itself for a product. Typically not used. Next is expiration management. So you have to determine if you want to set up expiration management on your products. I believe you guys do.
Yeah, Kansas City does expiration date management.
So it can be set up with rounding, with month end, rounding, beginning month +1, mandatory entry, manual entry. So
what's the difference between mandatory entry and manual entry?
Mandatory entry requires you to put one in. Manual entry gives you a suggestion to enter a date. Mandatory entry basically forces you to enter a date. Manual entry will suggest a date based on other characteristics.
So some items maybe don't have an expiration date. So I guess that would just be a different category feature depending on what you're.
Well, maybe not a different category. Again, these can all be changed at the product level. So you could have a product in a category that's got a default of mandatory entry, but the product itself doesn't.
Right. Okay.
So you set up expiration management can be, and there's more detail defined at the product level, in which you'll see is, you can set up the amount of months, and if you're in the middle of the month, you can be, to the next even month. That's what the other options are there. Then the expiration status, that just means what status of the product it goes to once you hit the expiration date. So if it's in stock and it was you have A, Q, and R statuses: acceptable, in quality, and rejected. So you could take an A product, when it hits the expiration date, you would want to put it into maybe a Q status to be re-inspected, or an R status to mean rejected, thrown away. Again, you don't have to define this at the category level. Next, if there's packaging, again, this is usually not defined at the product category level. Most people do their packaging on bills of materials and not using this function. This is basically for like different packet units of measure. If you want to, come off the line and some other packing units that you don't have defined as part of your stocking units, sales units, or purchasing units, this is where you define that. Then there's version management. That's the next block over. You can manage your versions of product. You can have a major and a minor sequence, like a 1 and then an A. 1A would be the major, minor would be the A series. So you can version control your products.
Okay, so Kevin, I guess I don't know if this is something they would want to use or not, because I do know that one of the customers changes versions. They send in a -1 or -2 or -3 if it's the same product, but maybe they've updated their packaging material.
Right.
Is that something, Kevin, that you guys used in the past, or something that looks familiar?
It does look familiar, yeah, and they do change versions, quite a bit on those films.
So it comes down to...
That would be maybe something more on the product itself, maybe not necessarily on the category.
Correct.
Okay.
All right. We got to move along here. We're on the second tab. Let's get to the third one if there are no more questions. Oh, you selected mandatory entry, so you got to put value in there for expiration status.
Is that what you mean, like A, Q, or R?
Yes. All right, units of measure again. This is basically going to vary product by product. But typically, you guys are going to be in pounds. For packaging, you're going to be in eaches. You could be in cases. Your finished products are in cases. Again, you're going to have stock label. There's some generic ones in there.
Do you have to pick a stock label? I guess I don't even know what that.
Nope.
Know what this means.
Now, most people don't use any of the predefined stock labels. If they want to use one, we'll have a custom report made for it. All right, next tab of receipts. All right, so these are some of those active characteristics that the category always governs over the product. This tab is receipt rules, and the next one is the issue rules. This has to do with how stock comes in and how stock goes out. So on the receipts, side of things, you have these management rules, and these are standard here. You basically describe what happens for different movement types. So your miscellaneous receipts, supplier receipts, quality control, internal transfers, stock changes. It denotes what the authorized statuses are, a default status. So if you look at the column over to the right, which says default status, you see the A's in there. So what that means is when I receive a miscellaneous receipt, it's automatically going to go into acceptable quality status. If I wanted to go into a Q status, I would change that to a Q. And if I wanted an analysis request generated, I would select yes.
Okay, so yeah, again, Kevin, I guess these are things we'll have to talk about as we start getting actual setup done with how your team wants this to work.
Right. Yeah. Seems like every time we push a button, we have a new question. So yeah, we'll have to get grouped together and kind of chop through all those.
Yep. So they're all characteristics you can change here. Basically, these are stock management rules for receiving, and then the next tab is for the issue, and we can help guide you through these when you start using the system. If you want to hop onto the issue flow tab, here you define allocation and issue allocation rules for orders, work orders, shipments, etc., etc. Go ahead and save the changes over on the right-hand screen, and we'll jump to another one and show you these pre-populated already. So go to the left list and select the packaging one. Bad example. Let's go to, this has to do with the types of, there we go. So here we have the issue flows, allocation 1, for global allocation, what type of product it allows to be allocated, either acceptable, quality, or rejected. You could actually allow rejected inventory to be allocated to a sales order if you wanted to, but typically that's not done. So that's what that global allocation is there. Typically, you only allow acceptable quality product to be allocated. And then where the allocation and issue rules are, within those are characteristics of what it allows. In this case, it's first in, first out. And then below on the management rules, these are just like on the receipt side. Based on the movement type, you can allow certain things to happen, certain status of product to be able to flow or not flow. Next, let's go to the accounts and cost tab. We were here a little bit before. You got the accounting code starting there. That determines how the accounting is what accounts are used for these types of products.
Did I go back to the test one that we were working on or not?
Absolutely. So here we had already set a few things up. Basically, if something's not posting to your liking, you would create a new accounting code for that product or product category. And you define a valuation method, cost group. I think we covered a lot of these things already. down below whether if it's a fixed asset, if it's capitalizable. Packaging wouldn't be fixed assets, so that's not the case. And then you define your dimensions. Excuse me. Your dimensions here, which is in accounting term, you can put a default in here for your department dimension if you wanted to associate one with a product category. So the next tab we have is the purchasing sales. All right, within here we have more MRP type planning characteristics we can define. Firm horizon, that's the amount of calendar days or weeks in which you basically freeze the schedule. So MRP won't, if you have a work order scheduled for this week, you don't want MRP to be messing with this week's schedule, so you would put a firm horizon out at, let's say, 1 week. If it were a purchase product, you really wouldn't want a firm horizon. So that's what that does. It's exclusively used for MRP suggestions only. Same thing with planning horizon below it. That allows what the planning horizon is that's a period of time usually defined further out, let's say 2 months or 8 weeks or in calendar days, to where the MRP system will look at true demand versus forecasted demand. So in your system, you're going to have, for example, sales orders. That is demand for product. You'll also have a forecast you can use. You don't have to use a forecast, but you can. So if you have both a real-time demand schedule, which are sales orders, and then you have a forecast, they could overlap. What this planning horizon does is it allows you to define for this particular product or product category how far out you want the real demand to go to and then stop, and then from there on out the forecast would take over. Typically this is set out at like 8 weeks or so. Then you have reorder lead time. That's usually product by product. Delivery tolerance. That just allows you to close the order if it's within a certain percentage. Your matching tolerance, again, that can define that further into further detail.
You mean like when we, what is the matching tolerance? So you mean like when we purchase an item and the invoice dollar amount's different than our receipt dollar amount?
Yes.
And is that matching tolerance a percent or is it a dollar amount?
I believe you can define it if you click on that action card. There are various, you can define both on the receipt side and the invoice side, percentage the quantity, days. There are a lot of details you can define here. There's nothing defined yet. It's only if
I'm sorry, I'm a little quick happy.
that's okay.
Do I need to click?
Is that in? No.
No, it won't let her do
Yeah, you have to create a new one and start, like, create a test one and go through all those details.
Can I just close that page? Will
Yep.
that?
Yeah, you can come back
Okay.
to it. Now, if you want more information on that, the way to do it is click on that field for me and then go over to the right list where it says help. Nope. Just,
Oh, sorry. Okay.
that's okay.
In the field.
Yeah, then go to where it says help and function help. Oh, I'm sorry. I just... Okay, so this is function help on the whole function that we're in. I didn't mean to take you here, so close out of this. So if you wanted more information on the field itself, click field help. And it'll give you a definition of what the field is. So there's a lot you can do with
Yeah,
that.
I guess at some point maybe we'll figure that out, but
Okay.
right now it's all people.
All right,
Making
so
sure we're
next-
paying the right amount.
Next below that, to the left is the received product. So you could have a non-managed product, but you want to receive it. Like you buy paper towels for the office. It's a non-managed product, but you want to actually do a receipt entry in the system. This is where you check it to be a received product. By default, it's always received. The next one controls whether you require a PO request before a PO is generated. People typically don't require that. Next below this, you have landed cost coefficient. That is where you can put overhead cost into the product cost, or a fixed cost per unit is the field to the right. So again, this would be more product by product setup. If you want to cost for overhead into the product, in addition to materials or direct costs, there are multiple options for that. One is landed cost coefficient, the other is fixed cost per unit, and then there's also what's called a cost structure. A structure can be quite complicated. It's mainly used for importing like containers from overseas, to where you have many costs that you can't capture just on like one purchase order, like your sea transportation, unloading, tariffs, etc., etc. You can set up a structure for a repetitive type of transaction to where you can receive multiple invoices against, and those will all get built into your stock valuation. Okay.
Okay, but you said that can be done on the individual products as well.
Yes.
And then we also, like right now, our landed cost, a lot of it has to do with freight, inbound freight costs.
Yes.
Is that something that's set up on the product as well, or?
Inbound freight is considered more of a direct cost that will be captured in the stock valuation.
That would be more on the purchase order side of things
Yeah, on
versus
purchasing and
on
receipts.
individual product.
Well, you have to define it. You can have direct costs, and then you can have overhead costs, and they're kind of two separate buckets. So if you're talking about direct costs that get valued into the product, that's that's more of a transactional type setting and not a product setting.
Right, and I would agree with that.
Like if you're receiving all products with freight, then that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, but you more so need to define how you want to value your inventory, and then from there we can advise you on, okay, do you want to automatically build it into inventory on a piece by piece basis, and that's in Laura is handling the financials part of this. That would be something that she would get involved with as well. But you have the options of landed cost coefficient, which would be a percentage of fixed cost per unit, a cost structure. That's all something you can build in as like an overhead or type model. And then you have the direct cost, which you value into the product in the receiving, in your paperwork, your purchase orders and receipts that come in. These are kind of like tagged on top of that, if you want them to be.
Right, okay. Yeah, more things we'll just have to talk about more as we get into it.
Then you have your sales block to the right. Typically, you're going to have normal sales. You can have other types of sales in here, like I think service sales. And again, you have a delivery tolerance and closing out orders there. You can have normal. You can sell kits. You have min and max quantities. Loans authorized. That's consignment inventory, where you create a sales order and you deliver a product to somebody, but you don't actually invoice them for it until they consume it. Back-to-back orders are drop shipments, to where you create a purchase or a sales order. The sales order creates a purchase order, and the stock is never received in your system. You can specify a back-to-back direct quantity or like a minimum quantity, to where, like, okay, if I'm going to buy 10 or more, then it's going to be back-to-back. If I'm not buying 10, then it's not going to be back-to-back.
So right now, how we handle those in our system is we have their own products are set up for each one of those back-to-back items, as you're saying it, and they have their own site, I guess you would say, to track those sales of the back-to-back sales. Is that, and they have their own category as well. So would that be something similar? We'd want to have them probably in their own product category.
Yeah, if you've got consistent products that are just drop ship products back to back, then yeah, I'd put them in their own category. And there's other setup involved on the product end. All right, the next tab is the planning tab. Here, oh, this is for MRP. Okay, as well. This is exclusively for MRP for like work orders. The other one was for purchase products. This is for products that you'll manage by work orders. So again, you have a firm and a demand horizon, same as the last purchasing tab. It's exclusively used for work order items. So below the firm and the demand horizon, you have a trend profile and shrinkage percent. The trend profile, you can create a profile of, like, a busy period and a not so busy period, and then you can specify a shrinkage percent. Rarely seen the trend profiles used, but the shrinkage percent, like in your case, you lose, let's say, 3% of your weight in making the dog treats. So in yesterday's example, I put in like a 3% shrinkage in here, so it will force the system to try and order 3% more materials to produce the final quantity. So if you need 100 pounds of dog treats, it'll tell you to order 103 pounds worth of materials. Below that, in the block below where it says manufacturing release of shortage, you typically want to do that. If you don't have something in stock, this will allow you to complete a work order if it is in shortage. And again, whether it's eligible for automatic closing is within a percentage of production. So if you produce 99% of an order and you run an automatic closing, if it's within a certain percentage, it'll automatically close it. So next we have the reorder block. Reorder mode. This is very important for MRP. Up and to the right a little bit. Reorder mode. This is where you tell the product whether it's MRP, MPS, ROP, or by period. or whether it's not managed at all. So typically your stuff's going to be all MRP. Then you have a reorder policy, which is next. This gets into some MRP details, but I created one for you called batch quantities. This basically determines how work orders are suggested and or splitted. You can split them up. There's what we'll see next. You have economic order quantities, technical lots, and your reorder policy kind of determines how to handle those. So next you have suggestion type, or to the right of that you have coverage. What coverage is coverage is like a moving average safety stock. So you can have a safety stock for a product to where anytime your stock forecast shows you going below that, it'll tell you to order some more. Or you can use coverage. What coverage is if you say, okay, I want 2 weeks of coverage, it will look at the total quantity that you expect to consume over the next 3 weeks, and that number on that day that's calculated is your safety stock. So it's a moving average. Every time you run MRP, it can change day to day. So your coverage can go from 100 pieces one day to 99 another, and that just basically resets your safety stock every time you run MRP to cover the amount of weeks that you set. So it's like a moving safety stock, if you will. It's calculated based on weeks. Next, we have the suggestion types. You want to click on those options. So this is where you define if the item is going to be purchased, intersite, subcontracting, or manufactured. So because in the very first description tab we didn't select manufacturing for this item, there's no manufacturing here, but we're in packaging, so these would be purchase suggestions. This is just what MRP is going to generate. You don't have to purchase it. You could create a work order for something that could be manufactured or purchased. Next is your safety stock. If you want to use safety stock, this is where you put the number in. Again, more of a product-specific thing than a category. You can have a reorder threshold. That's not used with MRP. That's used in reorder period method, which you won't be using. You can define a maximum stock. And then the two other important things are economic order quantity and technical lot. Economic order quantity will be a suggested quantity that you always buy. Let's say your economic order quantity is 100 pounds. So MRP is going to suggest that you order 100 pounds. If you need 95 pounds, it's going to suggest an order for 100. And then your technical lot is like your minimal lot which you can process. So if you have an economic order quantity of 100 and a technical lot of 50, and you had a demand for 150, it would suggest orders of 150 because it's in that 50 quantity increment. If you had an order for 125 and your economic order quantity was 100 and your technical lot was 50, you can set some parameters as to whether you round up or round down. So that's kind of the use of that. Again, specific product by product is more relevant. And then you have underneath that the parameters. There's an assignment rule that you can make. This basically is a stock setting that's usually set between either back-to-back or standard. It basically just keeps the orders and the supply basically together. And if it's back-to-back, you choose back-to-back. And if it's just for standard, you would use standard. And then the logistics tab is next.
So I picked standard, but then now the other one's not there.
There's a reason for that. That reason is a little bit of a bug in the system. If you hit that back arrow for me, go ahead in there again. Now the right and the left arrow, hit the left arrow. Now you see it. What X3 does when you use the magnifying glass is it starts the list alphabetically from the S. So you had to hit the back arrow to see anything less than S alphabetically. So when you're ready to move on, we'll cover the next tab, and then we'll jump down to an actual product. Here, for the most part.
Do you know what time? I think Rhonda and Val have another training this afternoon. How long do you think we have left on this training?
Well, I'd like to speed it along here. We're at almost another 10 minutes. We'll be at 2 hours. So why don't we wrap it up in the next 10 minutes? I think we can buzz through.
Okay, sounds good. I know we have a lot of questions that we just do. Sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. This is an very important part of the setup here. Okay, so here under logistics, the allocation issue flows are blanked out. That's for warehouse management, which we're not using. But underneath location management, that is important. We're under the storage block. So if you're going to location manage your stuff, that has to be checked. And then you can further define the locations on the product level.
So of course I have questions. So in Kansas City, they currently track everything by bin. So in other words, you're saying if we want to continue with that bin, you know, be able to see which bin it's in, we need to have this check marked for location management?
Yes.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah, on any products you want to use. And then you have to define the bins. And that's something I need to get more data on. I tried to import or define the locations in X3, and I didn't have enough information from the spreadsheet to do anything with. I was sent a spreadsheet from your IT department, but I need to follow up with that to get more information.
Okay, so do you need me to get you a bin listing? Because I think I can do that rather easily.
Yes, if you could. I think I have a bin listing, but it doesn't really say, you know, where it is in the factory, if it's a red or a green zone, or, you know, there's a lot of interpretation to it. Like, you know, are these racks together? Where in the plant are they?
I don't know that information, Kevin.
Do you want me to send you like a map of you want me to send you like a map of locations of the racking? Would that help?
Yeah, because the way the setup works, Kevin, is you got to define like an area. So you would have an area of pallet racks or something, and so that area is defined as, let's say, the pallet rack area or the green pallet rack area.
Yep.
And there's got to be capacity of those. We don't. Well, if you want capacity defined in those, like I can put one pallet in there, then we have to know that kind of detail. Or you don't have to use capacity at all. It can just be a place. So
yeah, we'll probably just make a place. I don't think we need capacity.
Right. So I did get a list of these you know, the locations, but we need kind of the next, like the parent level of, okay, where are they in the factory?
Okay.
All right. All right. Let's quickly try and jump to a product. Let's close out of here. All right. Go into manage products. The little green dot there under.
Is this the right screen, or do I need to go back?
No, you need to go back. Just close this page. That's okay. So on these process maps, when you have a solid green dot, that will take you somewhere. When you have an open green dot, that means that you have a list to select from. When you have a magnifying or a printer icon by some items, that'll take you to a report. So, okay, so we're in the product screen here. These are your products. I imported them from your data that was provided. So you can scroll through that left list. That's a list of all your products that I have. You can see the categories that I interpreted to assign them to. You can reassign these. You can do anything you want with them. So somebody should go through and kind of review these and make any corrections. So within the product, you have almost all the same information as you did. Go ahead and find a product if you want. Search for a product. Select any one you want. We can go through it real quick. So are you good with the rice flour here?
Yeah.
Okay. So on the identification, there's not much here. It's the product, rice flour. It's active. No statistical groups assigned. Let's click on the Management tab. So this is stock managed, mandatory not lot. I have a lot sequence in there, so you may want to strip that out. We don't let stock less than 0. If you want to, that would be checked. Management mode is available stock. Traceability is there. No serial number or version management. Move on to units and measure tab. Here, this is all in pounds, pretty straightforward. Next tab. So the accounting code looks correct, no tax. Department 53, Kansas City Treats. I put in as a default dimension. Sales tab. Not a sellable product because it's a raw material. That's the way I set it up anyways. So if you want to be able to sell rice, flour, I guess depending on what facility, you actually do sell these raw materials to other places, correct?
We do, and you know, some of our sales at this point in time, maybe from Kansas City specifically, would maybe be back to Fairview Mills at Fairview or one of their other facilities.
Yep. So go back to the identification tab, then the management tab. Yeah, I was thinking we could see some other information here. So you'd have to go back to the product category and see if we have the ability to change this to sellable, sold product. All right, let's move on quick. We can address that. After sales, we have, I won't even get into this detail. I don't think you'll use it, just to spare time here. Has to do with points and vouchers. Okay, customers, this is important. If you are selling to a customer, you can define the customers you're selling to, their part numbers, etc., even a different unit of measure. Because this is not in the sellable category, this is not available. So let's jump over to the next purchasing one. Okay, this is where you see those horizons. I put in a firm horizon of 0, planning horizon of 4 weeks. I didn't have any lead time, so I didn't put a reorder lead time in there. It is a received product. And I don't have any base price information. I guess I might have something from your product list. I think I can populate that base price for you. The base price is just what would appear on your purchase orders.
Well, I don't know if we want. So you're saying it would populate automatically as a check, and then we would change it to what we're actually purchasing the product at?
Yes.
Okay.
You can have it at 0 if you want, or you can just use it as kind of a marker. And you can also have purchase price lists, which you can establish pricing rules, all kinds of, depending on who you're buying it from. Typically, people don't update their pricing as they buy it and don't use price lists on purchasing. So, for example, though, in your testing and stuff, you're almost going to want to have base prices for stuff you're buying and selling, because another thing in the system it'll allow or not allow is zero valuation on products. So you probably don't want to allow zero cost items.
Yeah, I think we do. Well, I mean, I guess from my standpoint, I know we receive stuff in at zero value currently because the customer provides a lot of their own packaging.
Right. So
and I guess for us, that's a zero item that's in inventory.
Yes. So in those circumstances, you can set certain products up to allow zero cost.
Okay.
But stuff that you're going to be buying and wanting to value in the system, you may want to put a base price in. You don't have to. Next, you have suppliers. This is where you define what suppliers. So you can define supplier product number. Again, you can define individual landed cost coefficients, fixed overhead costs for these matching, et cetera, et cetera. And this is where you define whether it's a back-to-back order or not at the very bottom. This product is under back-to-back order defined here, then when you do a sales order, it's going to ask you to generate a back-to-back order or not. All right, let's cancel out of here. All right, real quick, one thing that's very important, and we don't have enough time to get into it, and maybe in our next session we can, is now that we've got our products in the system, they're used universally throughout all companies and all sites. Then there's one more step to define information specific to a site. So you could have the same product, flour, at two different sites, and you could have different pricing, you can have different valuation methods, you can have all kinds of different characteristics. In order to handle that, X3 requires you to then create a product site record. So every product to be used on the site has to have a product site record. So real quick, jump back into products for me. All right, and on the right-hand side of the screen, you see where it says product site there? We can jump to that and select that. Okay, and you see here, it's taken us to, we have a product site record for Kansas City Streets. That's where you say it says the stock site in the upper center. So within here, again, you have certain characteristics that flow all the way down to this level, whether it's stock managed or not. So the product could be stock managed, but the product site at this site, you may not manage it. So you have further details you can choose from at this level. The most important is to look at the planning tab. Again, your firm and demand horizons, these all flow down from the product. Your lead times, reordering methods. There are two things here that are very important and useful, and that is the next tab, the stock tab. Here, this will show you how much stock you have in the system. So if you have internal stock, that means on your site, A, Q, or R status. To the right of that, it shows you how much of that is allocated to orders. If you have shortages, if you have stuff out at a dock location, external situation is subcontracting stock. You could have loan stock out for consignment orders, your reorder. So this is a very good informational page. The next other one click on the cost tab for me. Okay, this is where you define the valuation method for the product. You can define different overheads for different types of movement types. This is yet another add-on to those landed cost coefficients. And then your cost down where it says that price block, where it says price, this will keep track of your average cost of your stock valuation. Okay, no matter what your valuation method is, it will keep track of average cost, last purchase price, and standard cost if you're using standard cost. Then the other tab of importance under totals tab. This will show you within the past year, like how many orders you have, how many, monthly quantities you've moved. And then there's other information available on the right list that we don't have time to get into today, but let's just say more advanced stuff we can cover at a later date.
So is the information on that, wherever we clicked at the product site, is that information that you have to fill out for every new item, or is that just if you want to have the same item for multiple sites?
If you only have one site, which you don't, you have multiple sites, it'll automatically create it. Since you have multiple sites, you have to manually create those for each site you want to use it at. So currently, I have them created for Kansas City Treats for everything. So if you wanted to create a new product site record example, close this page. Okay, so this product, this rice flour, let's say I wanted to also have it in stock at another facility. So if you go over to the right list and scroll down to the bottom, you have up a little bit under where it says functions. You can go to product site creation. All right, here, and you can check Fairview Mills. That's your only other stock site, I believe, here, and then hit creation on that right list. Now close out of here. Scroll back up on the right side. Select product site in the gray list. That'll take you over to product site records. And now hit that refresh, the little circle to the left of the printer. Okay, see now you have two product site records, one for KC Treats and one for Fairview Mills.
Okay.
They'll be identical at this point, but then you could make them unique from here if you wanted to. Like one could be location managed at one site, but not at the other. So that's, I think, about all the time we have here.
Okay.
And that really does cover a lot of information in a short period of time. Trying to see what other training you have today, if I have. Yeah, I don't see. Must be some financial training later.
Yes, we have payment terms and bank accounts later.
Okay, that'll be with Laura. Okay, so let me know if you have any questions. And again, I've recorded the session, and I'll post it on a YouTube link to where you can go back and view it at your convenience. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.